With the season officially over and the free agent market heating up, I thought it'd be a good time to drop some free agent predictions. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be looking at some of the biggest names in free agency and predicting where they're going to sign. Now, real quick, I did mention I'm only doing the biggest names today. In fact, I'm going over 15 players, so I am going to miss out on lots of names. So if I do miss out on some of your favorite players or players from your teams, let me know in the comments. So without further ado, let's get right into this. Getting things started off with Taijuan Walker, I have him signing with the Red Sox. The Red Sox were obviously really disappointing this past season, and they could have used some starting pitching help. And with arguably their best pitcher on the market in Nathan Eovaldi, I think Taijuan Walker would be a good fit in Boston. Next up, we have Josh Bell, who I think is going to sign with the Houston Astros. The Astros obviously don't have many holes on their team, if any, but if they did have one, it would be at first base. Yuli Gurriel has been productive in the past, but he's getting up there in age, and as he ages, his production has decreased significantly. Bell would provide the Astros with some much-needed power and offense over at first base, and I think he would be a great fit in Houston. Next up, we have Chris Bassitt, who I think is going to sign with the Minnesota Twins. Bassitt just recently rejected the Mets qualifying offer, which means he's most likely going to sign elsewhere. And the Twins are a team that I think would suit Bassitt well. They already have some pretty decent starting pitching, so if you slot him into their rotation, I think they could potentially be a postseason team next year. And Bassitt is going to be asking for a big chunk of money after playing very well this past season in New York, but the Twins have some money to spend. Next up, I have Andrew Benintendi, who I think is going to sign with the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox are a team who was really disappointing this past season. They were one of the most disappointing teams in all of baseball. Now, this one may seem a bit questionable because the White Sox do have some solid outfield options, but with Jose Abreu likely leaving, I think Andrew Vaughn, who was an outfielder this past season, is going to slot over to his natural position at first base, leaving an outfield spot open for a player like Benintendi. So I think the White Sox are going to be seeking some outfield help, and I think Benintendi fits their team perfectly. Next up, I have Jose Abreu, who I have signing with the San Diego Padres. There has been lots of talk around baseball that Abreu is going to go to San Diego, and it came out recently that the Padres are prioritizing Abreu this offseason. And with Josh Bell's likely departure, Abreu is going to have to fill the void at first base, and I think he could be a very good middle-of-the-order bat for San Diego. Next up, I have Wilson Contreras, who I have signing with the St. Louis Cardinals. I understand this is going to be a hard one to believe because the Cardinals are division rivals of the Cubs. In fact, they really don't like each other. But I think the Cardinals are one of the few teams that would be willing to give Contreras a long-term deal, and he would get lots of money with that. On top of that, St. Louis is a very desirable place to play. They're always competing, and they have stars all around in Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. Also, with Yadier Molina on his way out, the Cardinals really don't have any catcher options, so I think this is a great fit for both sides. Next up is Brandon Nimmo, who I think is going to sign with the Colorado Rockies. This is another one that's going to seem really questionable, but at the same time, the Rockies are the king of making questionable signings. Nothing against Nimmo, he's a great player and he had a great 2022 season, but I think the Rockies are going to find a way to pay a lot more than their competitors. So not very much reasoning behind this one other than the Rockies being kind of dumb, but I think it's going to happen and I think Nimmo is going to be a Colorado Rocky. Next up, I have Carlos Rodon, who I think is going to sign with the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles are one of the best young teams in baseball, and this offseason, I think they're going to prioritize spending and get towards win-now mode. And I think a veteran pitcher like Rodon, who is one of the best in baseball, is going to slot very well into their starting rotation, and I think he's a veteran presence that could really lead this starting rotation. Next up, I have Justin Verlander, who I have re-signing with the Houston Astros. This is one of my few predictions that I really have a lot of confidence in. I don't see why Justin Verlander would sign anywhere else. He's going to be 40 years old next year. He's not necessarily going to be prioritizing money at this point. I think he's prioritizing winning, and the Astros are exactly that. If he stays in Houston, he has a legitimate shot at winning yet another ring, and I think that's what he's going to do. Next up, we have Dansby Swanson, who I think is going to sign with the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs are a team this past season who played pretty well considering they had some low expectations. And I think, at least in their eyes, with a few big signings, they could potentially be a team that could hover around 500, maybe even be a little above 500 next year. And I think signing a player like Swanson would send a message to the fan base that they're looking to compete now, and I think that would go over very well. And one really important thing I forgot to mention is that the Cubs have a lot of money to spend. Moving on to Xander Bogaerts, I have him signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers are always in the market for big-name free agents, and I think Bogaerts would be a great fit in LA. Don't want to give out any spoilers here, but I do think Trey Turner is going to be gone, so I think the Dodgers are going to have to fill the void at shortstop, and I think Bogaerts is going to be a great option for them. Next up, I have Trey Turner, who I have signing with the Seattle Mariners. I know Turner has been saying that he doesn't want to play on the West Coast anymore, but Trey Turner and the Mariners just seem like a perfect fit. The Mariners are an up-and-coming team with some money to spend, and they really need some offense to help Julio Rodriguez. And with a player like Trey Turner slotted into that lineup, that could really make them a World Series contender. So I understand Turner did say that he wants to play on the East Coast, but I just think Trey Turner and the Mariners would be such a good fit, and I think it's going to happen. Moving on to Carlos Correa, I have him signing with the San Francisco Giants. I really do think Correa is going to leave Minnesota, and I think the Giants are one of the top teams on his list. They're a team that has been proven to be able to win with not the most talent on their roster, and obviously bringing Correa would bring in lots of talent. They finished at 500 this year, and I think with the addition of Correa, they could be a team that could win high 80s, maybe even 90-something games and make the postseason again. Moving on to Jacob deGrom, I have him signing with the Texas Rangers. The Rangers are a team that's known for making huge free agent signings, especially last offseason where they threw a ton of money at Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. They're a team that, with the addition of a player like Jacob deGrom, could potentially be 500, maybe a little bit better, and be a competitive team. There's also been lots of rumors around baseball that have been stating that deGrom is interested in playing for Texas, and I do think that's going to happen. And finally, getting onto the biggest name in the market this offseason in Aaron Judge, I have him re-signing with the New York Yankees. Judge has expressed interest in playing for other teams, but in reality, why would he leave New York? He seems like the perfect player to be the face of the New York Yankees. He's notable, he's likable, and New York loves him, and he's also going to get a lot of money. And yes, I know a lot of other teams are going to be giving him a lot of money as well, but I don't think anyone's going to outbid the Yankees. They can spend a lot of money, and they're going to prioritize keeping Judge. So I think Aaron Judge is going to stay put in New York, and I think he's going to sign a huge extension. Alright, so that's going to wrap today's video up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.